Hello, people. Welcome to Main Event Boxing Talk. I've got my co-host with me here, Tom. How are you today, Tom?
I'm doing well, Nathan. How is everything over there in England?
It's all good, mate. Yeah. Right, we'll make a start. Arthur Linden will be fighting Anthony Yarde for the Commonwealth title. For me, it's a sort of fight that Yarde shouldn't really be taking. It makes no sense for me, this level of opponent. Linden's a good opponent, but he's British level. He's not European level. He's not world level. It seems a bit of a too far step down for me to take this kind of fight.
Well, I think Anthony Yarde's claim to fame was that he went, 10 rounds with Kovalev and shook him up?
Yeah, but he proved to me in that he's definitely more or less borderline world class based on that performance, which was good.
Well, borderline is the adjective I would use. And I've been watching Linden. I've watched a few of his fights, and he's a very good boxer. The last guy he fought was pressuring him very hard, but he was able to control him. And I think it's going to be a better fight than we think it's going to be.
Yeah, I think it will be. But there's levels to boxing, there's levels. And this guy, he's not on the same level. He may be able to last 7 or 8 or 9 rounds, but he will still get knocked out. I just think it's a big step down. I mean, Yarde's meant to be a world-class fighter. Shouldn't be fighting guys like this. Just for a cut title, he should have won 2 or 3 years ago. Because he didn't go the domestic route properly. He went the Mexican route, fight easy fights, and then get a world title. Now he's going backwards of his career. So to me, it doesn't make any sense.
Yes, but from a business point of view, which boxing is a business, he has to get exposure on TV. And if he performs really well here, as you're saying he should because of the levels, then it's a good fight for him. He's got to be active. I mean, the last fight was where in South America, and it was a joke.
And then he fought another guy who Arthur Linden went 12 rounds with. So if Anthony Yarde is knocking out a guy in 5 rounds that Arthur Linden won in 12 rounds, to me that tells me all I kind of really need to know. Really.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but it's not always that way. Look, George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier. He destroyed him within 2 rounds?
Yeah.
I mean, he completely destroyed him. And Frazier took Ali the distance except for the last fight that they fought, right? Why? Because styles make fights. Now, yes, Linden is a good boxer. He can punch. And we'll see if he could stand up to Yarde's pressure. I agree that Yarde does have an advantage in experience, and he does have an advantage in punching power, but he doesn't do as well with boxers. And so I don't know, if that means anything. I think Linden is going to be very motivated and ready for this fight. So we'll see. I think it's going to be a good one. I don't think he's going to run over him.
If Yarde doesn't knock him out in 7 or 8 rounds, then there's something wrong with it. Then if the narrative of this fight goes the way I think it will, he should finish him off in 5 or 6 rounds quite handily. And if it goes to 12 rounds, then we've got to ask more questions about Anthony Yarde. How good is he really?
That's true. That's true. So, I mean, he was on the big stage with Kovalev, and he had him in trouble, but he couldn't close the show. So that was it. He wound up getting knocked out.
This was an old man, Kovalev, a man who is 5 or 6 years past his prime, who if he'd had any intentions, he would have finished it. But again, it just goes down to his lack of experience at world level. Okay, we'll move on.
We'll see. But I think it's going to be entertaining. I don't think it's going to be one of these quick knockouts. All right, so you want to talk about Spence and Garcia? Who you like in that one?
I'm going to go for Garcia.
Yeah, I kind of like Garcia. I've been watching the show that they have on the internet, where they do the 3-part fight training camps. And Spence looks very lean, when he, before the crash, he looked lean, but he had more muscle.
Yeah.
And he looks a little, I don't know if when he was interviewed if it was a day where he may have been dehydrated, because where he trains, it's very hot. And I just hope he's okay. I have doubts about how he's going to do taking a punch. I didn't really see much of him sparring where I saw Garcia sparring hard.
I think the problem is, I think
So,
the car crash has taken more out of him than what we know, and I think that's going to be the difference in this fight. I know I shouldn't be saying that, but that's what I feel. I think this is the perfect chance for Garcia to capitalise on, an injured.
well, an injured Spence, yeah. But let's look at this. Garcia, in my opinion, is a better puncher.
Oh, I mean, he's a much better puncher, and he's a more skillful boxer as well.
Yeah, I believe. Yes. Well, I don't know about boxing skill. Spence is a better. Spence is a very good boxer, and he moves well. He throws good combinations, and he does have power. He didn't take out Mikey Garcia, which everybody expected him to.
Mikey Garcia, that's the only time I ever saw him use his skill to his full ability. Only time I ever seen him do it. Because before he didn't have to.
Well, he was
knocking everybody out.
Well, he was using it against Kell Brook.
But I mean,
but that was a close fight until he got. Say that again.
I saw the best of him when he fought Garcia. That was the best I've ever seen him fight. In terms of skill-wise and what he's doing in the ring.
I really just hope he's okay. That he doesn't get hit and then, it really affects him badly. But we won't know. Everybody says he's looking good, but everybody used to think Muhammad Ali was good in his life, after he fought the third team.
Nobody's seen anything. So if we're not seeing anything, so there's something wrong. And he shouldn't be taking this fight. Really, he should have just vacated. If he wasn't in the right frame of mind, he should have vacated the WBC belt.
Well, let's just hope he doesn't get hurt. And let's see what happens.
I don't have a lot of, we'll see what is. If there's any of the old Spence left, then Garcia is in trouble.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, Garcia's best chance is to get him, to get inside and go to work rather than stay on the outside while Spence is moving as a southpaw and picking him off from the outside.
Yeah.
But Spence can also fight inside, and Garcia loves to fight inside. So that's the interesting thing about this. If they go inside, how Spence is going to hold up. So we'll see what happens.
All right, let's see.
All right. Tyson versus Jones. Did you watch it?
I did, yeah. And I'll tell you, I was impressed with how good shape Tyson was in. But Roy Jones.
Right. You picked Jones to win, don't forget.
I did, yeah. I was very wrong.
Yeah. And, analyzing that fight and if you look at that fight and you look at Roy Jones, right? Roy Jones, one of the things you said was he was more active. His last fight was 2 years ago, and fight was 15 years ago. But here's the difference, and this is from a boxing point of view, from a technical point of view. Muhammad Ali and Roy Jones were two of the most naturally gifted athletes that ever boxed. So they didn't learn some of the fundamentals, but they did things their way and they made it work. But as their reflexes slowed down, they started to get hit more. Okay? Tyson was fast, but Tyson had very sound fundamentals from the very beginning, from a young age with Cus D'Amato and, turning him over to Teddy Atlas. They were fundamentals, day in, day out, fundamentals. So Tyson, you could see all the boxing fundamentals were there, the way he moved, the way he slipped. But Roy didn't have that fast twitch, natural athletic ability. He had lost it over time, and he never learned a lot of those, boxing basics. So actually, Tyson looked better because Tyson was actually performing boxing basics, whereas Roy Jones couldn't really get many punches off, and he would hold because he couldn't defend when Michael got close. So he had a hold.
He ruined the fight, and Tyson tried to take it to him, and Roy just took it. I mean, the only thing that did impress me was Roy's footwork. That was it. That's all he did was run. He didn't land any good punches.
Well, look, I think Tyson held back as well. I mean, when he got in close, he went to the body. He wasn't throwing heavy overhand rights, the right hand and then the uppercut, the right hand to the left side and then come back with the uppercut. When he was in close and he had his hands free, he just chose to let it break.
But they should have let him stop him. They should have let him beat the hell out of him. Let him do something to make the fight more interesting. A punch to body shot to the knockout would have been good. I know he's an old guy, but I just think it ruined it, giving them both belts at the end of four. That's ridiculous. No judge.
I think, though, is that, what brought a lot of people to this fight was that it was nostalgic. Mike has so many fans. Roy had so many fans, and guys that grew up watching them, they want to see, some flair, some of the past glory. But let's face it, those guys for their age, they did a good job.
Oh, yeah, Mike, he really impressed me. I was surprised at how fit he was and how active he was in throwing punches. He was throwing 40, 30 punches around.
Yeah, I mean, it being a draw was a joke. There was supposed to be no decision, this fight. It was just an exhibition. I mean, we all know Tyson outfought him every round. I think Roy only landed 2 good shots on Mike.
It also proved to me that obviously even when Mike wasn't in his prime in 2003, he still would have beaten Roy Jones 20 years ago, quite handily.
I think if he was in shape, yeah, he could have beat almost anybody.
If he'd been in shape in 2003 and he took that fight, Roy would have been killed. And we all know the truth. Obviously Roy wouldn't have won 20 years.
Not at heavyweight? No. Mike would have swarmed him and knocked him out cold.
But Roy was never a heavyweight. He was a blown up light heavyweight. He was a cruiserweight essentially, not a heavyweight.
I wouldn't even put him as a cruiserweight. He was a small light heavyweight.
Yeah, and yet he went up to heavyweight. But we all know
he had. Well, I think that was the beginning of the end of his career because he took some very heavy-handed shots, and then had to drop all that weight, and then he fought Tarver to a very close decision and got banged up. And then in the match, boom, and then Glenn Johnson, 2 knockouts in a row. Yeah. He should have retired after he fought Ruiz.
But when he fought Ruiz, he looked, that wasn't really a fight, was it? He was just throwing punches, running away, because obviously he couldn't compete with the heavy punches. And that's what he did when he fought Tyson. He ran away, didn't he? And he hugged him and he ran away for 4 rounds.
Well, did you hear him say, he goes, man, I got to hold on to him. He's too strong, he said to the referee. Yeah. He says, I'm not going to let go.
And then Tyson said, I'm good with a draw. You could tell on his face. He was pissed.
I don't think he cares. I don't think he wants to get involved in all of that. He just wanted to fight, and maybe he'll do more. Evander Holyfield wants him now. And I was listening to Mike's podcast, and they asked him, who was the toughest guy that, you hit, and, he took it, and he mentioned 3 guys, but then he said Evander, and then he said, he's a monster. He's a monster. And so I don't think Tyson is that anxious to get back in the ring.
I'd like to see Lennox Lewis get involved in the fight against somebody else, not against Tyson. I'd like to see an undercard where Lennox Lewis is fighting. Now, you can't fight Riddick Bowe because Riddick Bowe's 2 brain damage. So
no way. That would be disastrous.
They could bring back Danny Williams for Mike Tyson, couldn't they? Then he could kill Danny Williams off once and for all.
Didn't Danny Williams beat him?
He did, yeah. But Danny Williams, you've seen Danny Williams recently. He looks terrible. He got knocked.
No, I haven't.
Oh, he looks awful. He'll get knocked.
Well, I think, look, this is legends, right? I don't think Danny Williams was a legend. This is the Legends League. So if Mike's going to fight anybody, it'll be like Evander Holyfield.
Yeah, but they could get Danny Williams back for revenge. They could market it real well. Tyson gets revenge on the British fight. It would sell.
Well, maybe in Britain, I don't know if it'll sell in the
It would sell in America, yeah.
Well, I think anything Tyson's involved in would sell. You want to move on?
Yeah.
So what do you got here with Canelo versus Smith that's coming up in a few weeks?
Based on Smith's last performance, I don't give Smith a lot of hope, to be honest. If he
How do
lasts,
you?
if he lasts the full 12 rounds, then it's an achievement. But that's all it'll be.
Well, let's look at this. If Smith loses, do you think Canelo would fight Billy Joe based on his performance tonight?
No, no.
Why
It'd
not?
be pointless. Be pointless.
What would it be, why would it be pointless?
Because Billy Joe is not on the same level as Canelo. He's good, but he's not on the same level, and it's quite visible to see. I mean, if he's struggling to beat people like Martin Murray, then it doesn't say much about him, does it? Billy Joe, he's just a big disappointment. He only,
Well, he's only 30, and he's 30-0, I think. And do you think Canelo would just run over him?
no, I think Canelo would beat him, stop him late. Because Billy's not got the power, he's not got the skill this guy's got. He's good.
Well, he did show some power in this fight. I think that thing when Murray went down, I think he would have went down anyway. He got hit really hard a few
Billy
times.
Joe's not a super middleweight, he's a middleweight, pretending to be a super middleweight, and he didn't have power when he was at middleweight. And he doesn't have power now. He's got a bit of power. Martin Murray is a fringe level journeyman, fringe level.
Okay, so let's say Canelo gets by him and GGG gets by his defense. Do you think they're going to have a third fight?
I hope not. I think it's pointless. We know what's going to happen. We've seen it happen 2 times.
Right.
But this time, Canelo will knock him out this time.
Well, I'm looking forward to him and Smith. I think if Smith is really motivated and on his game, he should put up a good fight.
If Smith hits him on the chin, it's over. Let's not. I mean, he's got dynamite. He's got power that Canelo hasn't got. He's got the sort of power that could knock Canelo out, cleanly. If he lands cleanly, it's over.
Well, I hope it lasts a few rounds, and
but
who knows what'll happen.
This is the toughest, probably one of the toughest fights that Canelo's had in recent years, next to COVID. In recent years, this will be the biggest guys. He's never fought somebody who's 6'6". Billy, he's kind of 6'5". He fought Rocky Fielding in 6'2", but he's never fought anyone as big as Callum Smith, who looks like a light heavyweight, a legitimate light heavyweight.
Yeah, and he's punching down, so he's going to have more power. Well, we'll see what happens, man. That's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. So what do you think of? Let's move on. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about Big Baby being banned for 2 years? Or do you think he should be banned for life?
I think he should be banned for life.
Me too. I think I'm sure there are fighters getting away with stuff, and depending on how they're tested and when they're tested. But I think it's clear that this guy is a serial abuser here.
He's just a waste of space, to be absolutely honest.
Right. I think so, yeah. So 2 years. I mean, will he even come back after 2 years?
No, I mean, what is he now? He's 32 now, isn't he? So he'll be 35. Anything he's done, he's had chances to win world titles. He's blown it. He's blown multi-million-pound paydays. He's too, he never had the power, did he? The top heavyweight guys, the top lighter, like the Povetkins and the Joshua.
No, that's true. That's true. He never did. But I don't want to spend too much time on him and the drug abuse, because I think he should have been banned for life, is my opinion.
Yeah, fuck Jarrell Miller. Fuck him.
Now, Jacobs and Rosado, it's interesting because Jacobs now is at 168, and I think there's more money at 168 right now than in the middleweight division, except for the Charlo brothers, who I think are going to dominate that division. And if GGG wants to continue fighting, if he wants to make money, if he wins, he's either going to have to fight, Jermell. It's Jermell, I believe, yeah. Or he's going to have to fight Canelo, and Andrade wants to fight at 168.
I don't see him winning a world title at this weight, unless it's for a vacant belt. He could probably beat Billy Joe, but
we're talking about Jacobs now.
Danny Jacobs, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, where did he go wrong? I mean, he had everything. He could fight orthodox. He could fight southpaw. He's a punching power. Where did it go wrong for him?
I think he fought at middleweight 160 too long.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah. Yeah, because he's definitely talented, but this was more like, just a sparring match between the two of them.
Yeah, Rosado's not on the same level. I mean,
Well,
it shouldn't have been a split decision. He should have won it easily.
very easily, yeah. And Rosado is, a journeyman. And he's a good journeyman. He's talented, and he seems to be in that echelon, right underneath the top guys right there. And so guys like can fight him, and he's durable and whatnot, and he hangs in there and he makes money. So what do you think of the Joyce and Dubois fight?
Oh, I thought it was a dull fight. Dubois was in control most of the fight, just with the jab. And I think Daniel's inexperience showed. His lack of amateur experience, it all showed. He wasn't ready. They pushed him about 2 years too quick.
I agree. Yeah, he's very strong. And I think, Joe Joyce just pummeled him with that jab.
If you've got a bad eye and someone calls you a quitter, I think it's better to be labelled a quitter than lose your eyesight, isn't it? Common sense.
Well, he had to stop. I mean, he had a fractured eye socket.
But he had no choice, But then there's people on various media outlets saying he's this and he's that. And I'm like, it's boxing at the end, it's a business, but you've also got to protect yourself.
Those people have never been in the ring, so they don't know.
Yeah, but I've never been in the ring, but I can see the common sense of that,
Well, you've been hit in the face, right?
Yeah.
Some of those people have never taken a punch to the face. So they have no idea what it's like, and calling people that, names and whatnot is very disrespectful. And Dubois hung in there. I mean, look, the guy could have gone blind. He could lose all sight in that eye.
I think he will be back, but he has to get more experience. He needs to fight, more Nathan Gorman, not Nathan Gorman, more lower level than Joyce, a little bit lower. If it had not been for the eye, I mean, he was ahead on the scorecards, right?
Yeah, well, everybody's trying to get ahead to move up the ladder to make more money, right? So now, do you think Joe Joyce and the former champion has to fight Povetkin, right? Next, because he recovered. So do you think that the winner would fight Joyce?
Well, probably not. No. I mean, the thing with Joyce is he's better than people give him credit for. He always has been. I mean, do you remember, you've heard me say that I thought he was talented, didn't you? I said he was like just below the top end.
Right. He's pretty robotic, but he's strong. He catches a lot of punches, but he takes them and keeps coming.
If he was like someone like Wilder, he would probably last 2 or 3 rounds if he was lucky. Because Wilder would just have a field day. He would chin him. Joyce is so easy to hit that Wilder would knock him out within 2 or 3 rounds.
At least knock him down, and
he'd hurt him, seriously. I think even Joshua, he could give Joshua major problems. But I think eventually Joshua would stop him.
Yeah, Tyson Fury as well.
Fury would box him to pieces.
Yeah, and I'd like to see Fury back in the ring. I was reading an article today that they don't have to give Wilder a rematch. The clause expired.
I don't think Wilder deserves it. Forget it, move on. He can fight for a title for another time. If Wilder were to take another beating like that, his career would be over.
Right. So Joyce, though, getting back to Joe, I mean, he does have opportunities now, but Dylan White, if he wins and doesn't get a shot at one of the champions, could fight Joyce, or Povetkin could fight Joyce.
Fight Joyce. Too risky. I actually believe Joe could actually beat White.
I know, you said that, yeah.
Yeah. I think White talks a lot for a man that's been knocked out. He talks too much. He's good, but he's not that good.
Well, he got really, really stretched in the last fight. He was doing well.
He won that. He shouldn't have even lost that.
Do you think he'll win the rematch?
Yeah.
It only takes one punch, man.
But let's be honest. Povetkin's chin ain't enough. His punch resistance has gone compared to what it was 3 or 4 years ago. His punch isn't there anymore. If he traps him like he did the first time, White won't make the same mistake twice.
Well, that White's punch resistance could also be lowered now
Yeah,
too
but
from
his
that
punch
last
resistance
knockout.
has never been great.
Mhm.
We
Well,
see
it's
him knocked down by everyone.
interesting. There's a lot of possibilities now with these guys coming up, and there's some other guys coming up that we've seen recently that
Very
the Cuban guy, the Cuban
good.
heavyweight is good, and Ajabe, I don't know yet. He's still a little green, and then
He's
there's
a
what
work in
is
progress. But I think
yeah.
Hergovic, in the next year and a half, you'll see Hergovic win a world title or fight for a world title. Very soon.
Well, he's very destructive, isn't he?
Oh yeah, he reminds me of a young Vitali.
Yeah, he's very destructive. So you want to move on to Lopez refusing to give Loma a rematch?
Yeah, I think this is a bit. I think it's a bit wrong, really.
Yeah, it kind of changes up the lightweight division because you have Tank there now, and Tank looked great against what's his name? I forgot
Fortune, was it?
No, not Fortuna. The
Santa
guy
Cruz.
Santa Cruz. So you have some possibilities there, but who's Lopez going to fight to make some big bank? And then there's also what's his name? Devin Haney, right, at lightweight.
Yeah.
So there's all these possibilities there, and then Lomachenko could want to stay at lightweight. I don't recommend it. I mean, that shoulder of his is bad.
I think he should just retire, go back down to super featherweight, have a couple of wins, win a belt, and then walk away.
I agree.
He's 33 now, and he's 34.
I agree. Yeah, because the way he has to get in there, he throws that left and moves to the side, and then with these big guys, he's throwing that right hook over their shoulder to get to their chin as they're leaning away, and that takes so much wear and tear on this joint here to do that from that angle. Like this, you got to hit and pivot and move. And that just puts, I've had shoulder injuries, and that is an unnatural position to throw the punch like that as you're pivoting into it. It's very difficult, and he does it, but that's why his shoulder's giving him trouble.
Yeah.
Well, we finished our topics. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
Yeah. Julio Cesar Chavez got a win last week.
Oh, the junior. Yeah. Well, I watched that fight. He fought a guy that was smaller than him, had what, 3 losses and was 15-3-1. I mean, come on. I mean, where's Junior going?
But then he fought somebody about 2 months ago that he lost to, who was 8-0.
Right, because of a cut or something, right? Or an injury.
I mean, you would have thought that him being a former world champion, they would have given him it, wouldn't you? You would have thought they would have given the decision, or at least called it a draw.
No, they had it. I think it was stopped on something, wasn't it? They stopped it. Yeah, or he didn't come out for it because he had a cut or something. But
it's pathetic that this is a former world champion talking about. Yeah, he's fighting. He can't even beat Mexican road sweep. It's kind of bad, isn't it? It's a bad look.
It's more than a bad look. I mean, Freddie Roach, when Freddie Roach was training him, Junior likes to do things whenever he wants to do them. He shows up or he doesn't show up for training. He doesn't take it seriously. He's kind of just sleepwalking through life when you see him, I mean, I don't want him to get hurt, but really he's got to rethink his career. He doesn't have the discipline.
But he won a world title, you can't take that away from him.
No, and he was very good at one time and very gutsy, He went up there and he almost took out Sergio Martinez in that last 12th round when Sergio was dancing all around him. He took a beating. But then he laid some power on Sergio and almost knocked him out. That's when Sergio messed up his knee again. He went down on that
old overnight or something. It's just really strange. Like when he lost to Martinez, he fought Funfara, the light heavyweight, about 5 years ago, lost, and then his career just disappeared.
He went up to light heavyweight because he wouldn't stay in shape. He ate himself. He smokes a lot of weed, right? So he was probably pigging out. He couldn't make the weight. I think they were going to fight at 172, and I don't even think he made 172. He wasn't in shape. First of all, they should have never fought at that weight. He should have got in shape, and he should have fought at 168 or 160. He should have just got in shape. But even at 160, he was busted for taking diuretics to lose weight before the fight, to shed water. So if he was disciplined, he would have went to 168, and he could have made some money there. But I think at that time at 168, we had, what's his name? The great fighter who retired, who beat Kovalev twice, Andre Ward.
When he fought Canelo, such a one-sided fight.
Well, you got to give him credit for standing up to Canelo and not going down.
Yeah, but I just have to think,
he didn't throw any punches, really. He didn't open up. He didn't want to get knocked out.
I mean, that fight was just a money fight because it was Mexico, in Mexico. But it was a crap fight.
Yes, but here's the deal. After he lost to Martinez, he lost all discipline. And that was it. And he was just, subsisting on his name. And I think Martinez really got to him. Martinez got into his head and told him the only reason you're famous is your father. You're not as good as your father. He was bringing all of that head games up with him. And I think that affected him too, because Martinez talking to him in the fight was knocking the hell out of him and telling him things like that. And it wasn't until he knocked him down, but he was humiliated. And I don't think he ever had the same motivation after that.
But to be honest, it's not very often that sons are better than their fathers anyway in boxing.
Right. There are a few here. Well, let's look at that. What sons? Mayweather was better.
Forrest.
Mayweather was better. Who was? Say that again.
Vernon Forrest.
Vernon Forrest was excellent. Floyd Patterson's son, Tracy Patterson. Right. Shane Mosley Jr., Roy Jones. Roy Jones, his father trained him, right, for a while.
Yeah. And what did you think of the YouTube fight, Jake Paul? I tell you what, that was a brutal knockout.
It's brutal, but he's talking about fighting Canelo, he'd get killed.
No, I think he could probably get it to British level. If he was lucky, he might get it. He's probably British level.
You could train. It really depends on, if you're going to come in late like that, you better really be able to take a punch.
I think he could,
while you're working on getting your technique together and fight the right matches.
He could beat some of the guys, right in the last. Well, say there's a 1,200 cruiserweights, he could probably beat the people in the thousands, like 1,001 or something like that, but no higher than that.
Yeah, that whole show Thriller put on was good. I mean, Badu Jack, looked good going to his win. The guy was not in his class.
So what does it say about boxing when YouTubers can make more money and get more views than regular boxing? It doesn't say much about the state of boxing, does it?
Well, the state of boxing now is a business. It's a business. You're not seeing the best fighters fighting each other. This is why I say the titles don't mean as much as they used to anymore. It's a business now, and they're going to look at the bank that Tyson and Jones did, right? Look at how much money those guys made.
10 million. Roy, I think Tyson made $10 million.
But the pay-per-view numbers were as high or higher than the last 3 championship fights.
It's embarrassing, isn't it, really? I think it's embarrassing.
That's why it's so hard to see Canelo fight Billy Joe. I'm glad he's fighting Callum Smith, but to make those fights with the top guys, because they're promoters, they want to keep the, Crawford versus Spence or some of those guys on PBC.
Do you think
those promoters don't want to jeopardize their champions.
Do you think that boxing, you won't see stars like Muhammad Ali or Tyson again? Do you think those days are gone, where we'll see people, such legendary figures like that?
Well, I think you see them now. I think there are a few fighters that are great like that. I think Bud Crawford is. And,
but what about
will
Tyson Fury go down as being one of the greats? I mean,
he has to fight more. If he fights more, he can. We can't just say because of his 2 fights with Wilder, he has to fight some other
You can't tell me
guys.
that Joshua will go down in history as a better fighter than Lennox Lewis, because I don't think he will. You know, he's achieved a lot.
Again, you know, when you saw Mike Tyson and you saw Lennox Lewis and Evander Holyfield and George Foreman and all those guys fighting, you know, that was at the, you know, the beginning and towards the middle of HBO and Showtime getting that ball rolling, right? And then as you moved into the 2000s, then you started having more social media. You started having boxers promoting themselves like De La Hoya, you know, and what's his name, Floyd Mayweather and Shane Mosley and those guys. And then, like, you know, the classic thing of promoter, fighter, fight everybody started to change, and it's completely changed. You know, you have Eddie Hearn, you have Bob Arum, you have PBC, you have the fighters themselves, and they're going to hold on to their cash cows, and they're not going to have them fight all.
But what makes me laugh is you get someone like, I look at the heavyweights today, and none of them are a patch on Muhammad Ali or Mike Tyson in their prime, or Evander Holyfield. None of them are. I mean,
or Lennox Lewis.
Or Lennox Lewis. Tyson Fury, probably the closest we've got to those guys. You know,
and Tyson will fight anybody.
Oh yeah,
Tyson is willing to fight anybody. He doesn't duck.
He knows how to sell a fight. But you look at Bud Crawford; he doesn't know how to sell a fight. He doesn't bother. And he's stopping his own career progression. Why not?
I think that if he wants to, you know, fight those other guys, he's going to have to go with PBC, or else he'll just keep knocking off whoever they put in front of him. Because all those guys are going to wind up fighting each other, and the public is going to say, "How come you didn't fight Crawford?" You know,
Crawford's 34. He's burning up the best years of his career right now, and wasted on guys like has-beens like Amir Khan and Kell Brooks.
I wouldn't say he's wasting his career. He's fighting who he can get in the ring, and he's looking good doing it.
But didn't I say that the Kell Brook fight was a complete mismatch? I even said,
you know, you were right, and Kell was doing well until he ran into that right hook.
That was eye damage from the previous fights. That's all it was. He would have later.
That was a wicked hook he got caught with. He got caught coming in, and he was perfectly timed, and he got him right behind the ear, and man, that hurt.
But that hurt. It just proves that he needs to retire.
I agree.
If you get your eye socket broken, he got his left one, then he got his right one done in the next fight, didn't he? By Spence. And I just thought after that his career should be over. Then he had those 3 fights against the bums, and he fought that Australian guy, Michael Zafir, and he looked awful. Do you remember? He was getting hit. He got caught several times.
But you still have to respect the guy for stepping up.
I respect him, but at the same time, I think there's been brave, and then there's been stupid. He was stupid taking that fight. He was
stupid when he went up to fight GGG.
Yeah,
that was stupid.
But
that's where it all changed.
The only fight he could take now would be against Amir Khan. But now, since both guys are lost, that can no longer be a pay-per-view. No one's going to pay pay-per-view prices to see that now. There's no way that can headline a card.
Again, boxing is a business now. See,
I mean, people would probably buy it in Britain. And Eddie Hearn would put it on Sky Box Office. But they're both faded fighters who need to retire.
Well, that's true, but it's somebody better sit down and go, listen, you know, you had a great career. It's time to stop. You know, Joe Calzaghe could have went on, but why should he, right?
No, but because he was getting worse. You could see he was progressively getting worse.
Right.
He was getting knocked down by shots 5 years ago. 2 or 3 years earlier, he wouldn't have got knocked down by. So it was the right thing to do. You know, he was starting to look sloppy towards the end.
Right. Was his last fight Hopkins?
I think it was Roy Jones.
Roy Jones. Any decision, Roy Jones. Oh, did he get caught? He got caught in that fight or against Hopkins?
Down in the first round. The same way when he fought Hopkins. Hopkins knocked him down in the first round. I thought, what? And these guys were like a decade older than him.
But they were timing him coming in. That was what it was. They were good right hand.
There's no way Roy would have beaten. There's no way Calzaghe would have beaten a prime Hopkins or a prime Roy Jones. No way.
Well, he did great. I'm not taking anything away from him. He retired when he should have.
But
and that's good.
Two aging guys who'd already lost like 5 or 6 fights by that time. So to me, that didn't prove anything, those wins, over Roy Jones.
You got to fight the guys that are there. That's not his fault. They wanted to fight him. Nobody forced them to fight Calzaghe.
We all knew
He
when
wanted to fight.
Hopkins, I mean, Hopkins was still good. But we all know that Roy in 2010 was well past his sell-by date.
Yeah, well, Hopkins went on to win the light heavyweight title again, even though he lost that
5 years after that, yeah.
Yeah, so you cannot say that Calzaghe, because he was younger, won. He won very handily those decisions. He was a better boxer and moved better, and scored more punches. So you got to fight the guys that are there.
But as I said, Roy was shot, and everyone knew it when he took that fight.
Yeah, and everyone but Roy.
But if you look at Roy in his last couple of fights, notice how slow he was as he got older, where all his speed had gone. It's like he had nothing left, and it was almost like watching him fight in slow motion.
Well, that's why we saw what we saw against Tyson, because he didn't have those fundamentals that Tyson had. So all he could do was hold and throw something from the outside and run.
When you get fighters like that, once their speed and natural punch resistance is gone, their ability is gone as well, isn't it? You see it. It's like, look at David Hack. He's the perfect example of that as well. Once his speed had gone, the injuries mounted up, he wasn't the same fighter. That's what made him so good, because he was so quick.
And then Vitaly Klitschko exposed him. Not Vitaly, Vladimir.
Right, we'll end the podcast there. We finished now.
All right, well, I had a good time. Thank you, Nathan.
Let me just stop recording. Here we are.